If you know a family member, relative, friend, and they're thinking about going in the military, encourage them to do so. They will be better Americans when they leave, because they will leave the military with a love of country stamped on their heart.
Patrick J. Murphy was appointed Acting Secretary of the Army by President Obama in January 2016. In this role, he's responsible for all matters relating to the United States Army, including 1.4 million soldiers and the Department of the Army Civilians. He joins us here from the Mid-America Trucking Show in Louisville, Kentucky. Secretary Murphy, thanks for joining us here on Hiring America.
It's great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
President Obama recently appointed you to this position just in January. What does this job entail?
So I'm the Acting Secretary of the Army. So I'm the civilian leader of the U.S. Army, and that's 1 million soldiers and about 400 civilians. But of the 1 million soldiers, the majority of them are actually not on active duty. The majority are National Guard members and reservists, but we are one team, one fight. And as you know, when a governor or the President of the United States, calls 911, they call our Army for our natural disasters here at home, whether it's to fight Al-Qaeda or ISIS overseas.
And this morning, you were talking about ESGR and the statement of support that companies are signing to employ members of the Guard and Reserve. Can you tell me why that's important and what's going on with that?
Today was a huge day. Today we had 69 employers, really in the transportation industry for the most part, trucking specifically, to say we will hire these veterans. We see these leaders of character who have shown initiative, who have shown what it's like to be part of a team, and that live by an ethic of duty, honor, country. Sometimes we forget that these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, they're the longest wars in American history, about 15 years. And it's less than 1% of America that we've asked to serve in them. Our veterans are all over our country, but they are civic assets. They are the little league coaches, the pastors, they're the teachers. And we need to recognize that they have a lot more to offer, whether they serve for 3 years, 30 years. They're gonna give back to our community and our country for a lifetime.
When you were in Congress, you worked on some key legislation to help veterans. Can you tell me about some of that?
Sure. Listen, when I was in Congress, I was at the first term, I was the only Iraq War veteran elected, and I felt a real responsibility for my generation of veterans to make sure I made their transition when they come home better. So I co-authored the post 9/11 GI Bill to make sure, and that's already helped 1.6 million veterans go back to college or trade school or get some training that they needed to go succeed, whether it's in trucking or other industries. But I also, supported things. I wrote the bill that repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and that bill, at the time, it's kind of funny when we look back now, it was controversial. But in the military, we believe in equality. We believe that we treat everybody with dignity and respect. We don't care what color or creed you are. We don't care if you're gay or straight. Can you get the job done? Can you carry an M4 rifle? Can you kick down that door? Can you lead and be part of a team for a greater good? And those are the things that we look for the next generation of folks coming in to our ranks.
Today, what do you see as some of the biggest issues concerning veterans?
The Army 5 years ago had a budget of over $240 billion. Today, we're asking for about $140 billion. And that's with an increased op tempo when you look at Russia and what they're doing in the Ukraine, when you look at ISIS, which wasn't around 5 years ago, or Al-Qaeda, or North Korea that's getting more and more volatile. So the operational tempo is getting much higher, but our budgets, we've had a 40% cut. And we're proud to be America's varsity team, but we have some real fiscal constraints right now, and we need to be ready for not just to fight tonight, but also to fight in the future. When America gives her sons and daughters to us, to our Army, we have to make sure that they are trained and ready, and that if we put them in harm's way, they better have the advantage over our enemy. We better do everything possible to train them like they fight, and so they can come home to see their families again.
We'll be back with more of Hiring America in a moment.
Continue the conversation on our Facebook page and Twitter, and visit our website at hiringamerica.net. Submit a video with advice to help transitioning veterans entering the civilian workforce.
There is life after the military, and that's what we're going to talk about. This is time that you've earned for you and your family, having served faithfully and honorably for this great nation. You are precious, irreplaceable, and a national treasure. I wish you the best in your transition and in your new life as an American citizen outside of the military.
Go to hiringamerica.net/contest and you could win a Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Yoga.
Hire these great Americans. Hire these great Americans. Whether they're coming off of active duty or whether they're National Guard reserves, ESGR, you guys are leading the way, making sure that they have, if they have to deploy, they, every summer has to go to the way for 2 weeks, you can manage. But we need you to hire these great Americans.
Tell me about your transition process.
When I got out of the Army, I left the 82nd Airborne Division down at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I went back home to Pennsylvania. I shortly then, after ran for the U.S. Congress, I had, at the time, luckily my opponents didn't know this, but at the time I had $322 in my bank account. I was running my first race ever. I didn't come from a political family. My dad was a vet and a Philadelphia police officer. My mom was a Catholic nun. Luckily for me, she left the convent. But I ran for the U.S. Congress, and a lot of folks said, well, Murphy, you're not you might have a great story, you taught at West Point, you got a Bronze Star in Iraq, but you have no money, and it takes a lot of money to run. And I said, listen, I'm doing this for the 19 men I served with that never made it home. I'm doing this to make sure we have a voice in Congress so that they can't cut our combat pay like they tried to do when I was in Baghdad. And so when I got to Congress, I wanted to make it worth it. And I knew that whether it was going to be 2 years, 4 years, whatever, how long ever I served in Congress, and now as a Secretary of the Army, that I'm going to do what's necessary to fight for my fellow soldiers. I believe, I wouldn't have been a professor at West Point at age 27, teaching constitutional law, if it wasn't for the Army. I wouldn't have been a U.S. Congressman at age 33 if it wasn't for the U.S. Army. I wouldn't be the acting Secretary of the Army at age 42 if it wasn't for the U.S. Army. I mean, the Army has given me so much, and I believe in principles like post-traumatic growth. You go through these things that are extremely difficult. You see the best and the worst in people. And you have a brotherhood and a sisterhood of folks that you are fighting with and that you are there with for a greater good. And I think as a nation, we forget, we sent the U.S. Army into Bosnia and Kosovo. Why? Because they were killing Muslims on the side of the road in towns like Srebrenica. That ethnic cleansing, which was the worst ethnic cleansing in Europe since World War II, that didn't end until it was the U.S. Army. And you look at Afghanistan right now. There's millions of girls right now in Afghanistan that are going to school for the first time because of the U.S. Army and the military. So we have a lot to be proud of, but we have a lot of work ahead of us as well.
Why are you passionate about your program, Soldier for Life? Soldier for Life is a great initiative where we are partnering these public-private partnerships with private industry and nonprofits to make sure that they know the civic assets that we have. To us, it's a readiness issue. America looks at the Army and they say, are we ready to fight tonight? Are you keeping our families safe? Well, for the last 5 years in the Department of Defense, we've spent $4.6 billion to pay unemployment benefits. Because when our soldiers leave, if they don't get a job, we have to pay their unemployment. We're like any other employer. Spending money on unemployment, that's not money you can spend on salary. It's not money you can spend on healthcare. It's not money we can spend on brigade combat teams. And that's where our focus needs to be. So that's why it's so great that you see employers, here in Louisville, that, 69 of them today, but other folks that are hiring our Army veterans and other military veterans and saying, these are leaders of character. These are civic assets. We want them in our organizations because they know what it is to put the team first. They know what it is to take initiative. They know what it is to live a life of honor and of character. Secretary Murphy, thank you for joining us here on Hiring America. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.